Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are stripping down the engine of the trucking business. And I want to start with a little mental image. You know that feeling when you're driving in just heavy, heavy rain, the wipers are going full speed, you're gripping the wheel, your knuckles are white, and you're just staring at the taillights of the car in front of you.
White knuckle driving. Yeah, we've all been there. It's a universal experience.
Exactly. You're hyper-focused. You're working harder than you've ever worked just to stay in your lane. But here's the thing. You have like zero visibility of what's happening a mile down the road. Today, based on the research from Greystride, we're making the case that most fleet owners, and honestly, most business owners in these high-pressure sectors, are running their entire companies like that.
Just white-knuckling it through the rain.
Yeah, just banking on pure hard work to keep them on the road.
And the hard truth we're really tackling today is that hard work just isn't enough. In fact, in the trucking industry specifically, that reliance on the grind is, well, it's often what kills businesses.
That is a heavy opener. The grind is what kills you. I mean, the whole industry ethos is built on hustle. It's early mornings, late nights, keep the wheels turning. If you aren't tired, you aren't working, right?
That's the culture, 100%. But if you actually look at the data from our source material today, there is a very specific profile of a business that fails. And it's not the lazy operator, it's the exhausted one.
The exhausted one.
Yeah, it's the fleet owner who is so busy managing the day-to-day chaos, the breakdown on the N3, the driver who called in sick, the diesel bill, that they completely miss the big structural shift that's about to wipe them out.
So the mission for this deep dive is pretty clear then. We need to figure out how to stop driving by looking only at the taillights in front of us.
Okay.
We're going to talk about something called market awareness. And before you tune out thinking this is about, I don't know, watching stock tickers or reading the Wall Street Journal, just hold on.
Right. Please don't picture a guy in a suit analyzing the S&P 500. That is not what this is. This is about the dirty fingernails operational reality.
We're talking about a survival mechanism. We're going to look at why your internal checklist of success is probably lying to you. We'll break down how to price your loads, not based on fear, but on actual math, which is, rarer than you think.
It really is.
And finally, we're going to explore why the most dangerous competitor you face might be the one doing absolutely nothing right now.
The invisible advantage. I love this part of the research. It's my favorite.
Mine too.
Yeah.
But let's start with the trap. The source calls it operating blind. And it describes this deceptive checklist that most operators use to comfort themselves. Walk us through that.
Sure. It's the checklist you run through in your head when you're trying to fall asleep at night. You ask yourself, are the trucks moving? Are the drivers busy?
Yes.
Did we invoice a decent amount this month?
Yeah.
Yes. Is the fuel bill covered? Yes.
And if you can say yes to all of those, you sleep like a baby. You feel like you've won the week.
You do, because you feel active. You feel utilized. But here is the critical takeaway from Greystride. Turnover does not equal health.
Turnover does not equal health. Okay, break that down for us. Because in my head, and I think for most listeners, if money is moving, the business is alive.
Alive, maybe. But healthy, no. You can have incredibly high turnover, trucks running 24/7, and be slowly bleeding to death. The problem with that internal checklist is that it's looking at lagging indicators. By the time a bad contract or a market dip shows up in your bank account balance, the damage was done 3 months ago.
Oh, so it's a timing mismatch. You're celebrating today's invoice.
But you don't realize you lost money on the load itself.
Because the decision that cost you happened way back.
It's a context vacuum. Operating blind means you're making decisions based solely on what is happening inside your four walls. I have a truck available, therefore I must fill it. But you aren't looking outside to ask the real question. Is the rate on this load actually covering the replacement cost of my tires 6 months from now?
That's a key distinction. You mentioned replacement cost. I feel like a lot of operators are looking at what they paid for the truck then, not what it costs to replace it now.
Precisely. And that's the inflation trap. You look at your depreciation schedule based on a truck you bought in 2019. But to replace that exact same truck in 2026, the price had jumped maybe 40, 50%.
Wow.
So if you're pricing based on your internal history, well, this rate covers my truck payment from 5 years ago, you are literally subsidizing your customers to run you out of business.
Oof. Subsidizing your own demise. That is a terrifying way to put it.
But we see it constantly. We see fleets expanding because they are busy. The owner says, hey, we're turning down loads. Let's go buy 5 more trucks.
That sounds like business logic 101, though. I mean, if demand exceeds supply, you expand. Why is that wrong?
In a vacuum, it's right, but without market awareness, you might be expanding at the absolute peak of a cycle. You're buying expensive assets just as the market is about to cool off. So now you're stuck with a huge debt load in a shrinking market. You built a machine for a world that literally just disappeared.
Okay, so that's the operating blind nightmare. Let's flip the switch. What does operating with vision actually look like? The source is really clear that this isn't about macroeconomics, it's granular.
Oh, extremely granular. Market awareness is about specific data points in your lane, in your sector. It's not how is the economy doing, it's what is the harvest forecast for maize in the Free State this year?
Okay, that's specific.
Yes, that's specific. If you haul agricultural goods, you need to know if fertilizer prices are spiking because that affects planting, which affects harvest volume, which affects your loads 6 months from now. If you're in mining, you need to be watching global commodity prices because when copper drops, the mines slow down, and suddenly there are 500 trucks fighting for 100 loads.
So it's all about anticipating the bottleneck.
It's about moving from reactive to proactive. The reactive operator says, oh, wow, loads just dried up. I better lower my rates. The proactive operator saw that commodity dip 2 months ago and signed a fixed volume contract while things were still good. Or they moved their fleet to a different sector entirely.
It's also about watching your competitors, right? But not just the usual, jealousy watching.
Look at his shiny new rims. No, not that. It's asking why. If a major competitor suddenly drops their rates on a key lane, don't just get mad. Ask why. Are they desperate for cash? Or do they know a major new contract is coming online and they're trying to clear out capacity?
It's intelligence gathering. Now, we have to touch on the specific context mentioned in the source material because this isn't happening in a stable, predictable environment like, Switzerland. We're talking about markets like South Africa.
Exactly. The source is very clear on this. If you operate in a volatile context, awareness has to include infrastructure. We're talking about load shedding, port congestion, border delays.
But these aren't just inconveniences. They actually change the math.
They break the math if you aren't careful. In a stable economy, a truck doing 500 kilometers takes X amount of time. In a volatile context, that same trip might take 20% longer this month because of infrastructure failures or border processing going offline. If you aren't tracking that, if you don't know the Byte Bridge border delay has gone from 4 hours to 12 hours, and you don't adjust your pricing for it, you are losing margin every single hour that wheel isn't turning.
Which brings us perfectly to the next section, pricing. The source calls this the pricing paradox. And I think this is where the rubber really meets the road for most listeners.
It is.
The paradox, as I get it, is that the people who need margin the most are often the most afraid to ask for it.
Fear is the dominant emotion in pricing for small to mid-sized fleets. It's the fear of the empty truck. The customer says, this is the rate, and the operator does the quick mental math. Well, it covers fuel and the driver, and it contributes a little bit to the truck payment, so I guess I'll take it.
Better than sitting still.
That is the phrase that kills profitability. Better than sitting still. Market awareness gives you the confidence to realize when sitting still is actually the better option.
But hold on. How does data change the negotiation? Because at the end of the day, the customer wants the lowest price. If I walk in with a spreadsheet, are they really going to care?
Data changes the conversation from an opinion to a fact. If you walk in and say, I need more money because my costs are up, the customer doesn't care. That's your problem.
Harsh, but true.
But if you walk in and say, look, capacity on this lane has tightened by 15% because of the harvest, and port delays are adding 6 hours to our turnaround time, which increases costs by X. Therefore, the market rate is Y. Now, you aren't being greedy. You're just being accurate.
You're just quoting the weather, basically.
Yeah.
You're stating facts about the environment.
Exactly. And the source mentions some really sophisticated pricing factors that most people miss. It's not just cost plus. It's pricing for risk and for payment terms.
Okay, let's dig into that payment terms one. Because I think people treat net 30 and net 60 as just administrative details. Oh, that's just when the check arrives.
They're not administrative. They're financial details. They're pricing details. If client A pays in 30 days and client B pays in 60 days, client B is costing you money. You are acting as their bank for an extra month.
You're floating their fuel, the driver's salary, the maintenance, all of it.
Correct. In a high-interest environment, that capital costs you real money. Market awareness means you calculate that cost. You don't charge them the same rate. You might charge client B 2 or 3% more just to cover the cost of carrying their debt.
And if they ask why?
You tell them, I can give you the lower rate on 30-day terms or this rate on 60-day terms. That is a confident, market-aware conversation. The blind operator just accepts the 60 days and then wonders why they have no cash flow.
Which segues us into the lifeblood of any business, cash flow. The source refers to market awareness as the canary in the coal mine for cash flow problems.
This goes right back to that lag effect we talked about. Bad news hits the market before it hits your bank account.
Okay, so give us an example of a canary. What should a fleet owner be looking for on a Tuesday morning?
The biggest one is changes in payment behavior. If a reliable customer who always pays on day 30 suddenly starts paying on day 38, then day 45, that is a screaming red siren.
It's not just a clerical error in their accounting department.
It rarely is. It usually means their customers are paying them slow or they are managing their own liquidity crunch. If you're market aware, you spot this trend early, you cut their credit limit, you stop taking new loads until they pay up. The blind operator just keeps hauling because they're a good customer, and then when that customer finally goes bust, the operator is stuck with $500,000 in bad debt that sinks their fleet.
Wow. That's the difference between losing a client and losing your entire business.
Exactly. Another signal is fuel. If fuel prices spike, there is always a lag before market rates catch up. The aware operator knows this lag exists and has fuel surcharge clauses built into their contracts before the spike happens. They aren't negotiating after the fact. The math is already agreed upon.
It seems like so much of this is about stripping away emotion. We get
Yeah.
so attached to the business, to the relationships. Oh, he's a good guy, he'll pay.
Emotion is expensive. Data is cheap. Use the data.
I want to talk about decision making.
Yeah.
Specifically, the big decisions. Buying trucks, entering new routes. The source talks about structural versus seasonal shifts. Can you explain that distinction?
This is crucial, especially in a volatile economy like the South African market. You see a spike in demand. Everyone wants coal moved or everyone wants citrus moved. Rates go up. It's so tempting to buy equipment to capture that revenue.
Grab it while it's hot.
But you have to ask, is this a seasonal spike that ends in 3 months? Or is this a structural shift, like a new mine opening that's going to last for 5 years? If you buy a 5-year asset for a 3-month spike, you are in so much trouble. Market awareness is the discipline to tell the difference between the two.
And that discipline leads to what the source calls the invisible advantage.
Yes. And this really challenges the Instagram version of trucking success.
You know the one?
Yeah.
Chrome stacks, custom paint jobs, king of the road, captions on social media.
Right. It looks like success. But often, real sustainable success in this industry is invisible. It's boring. It's the power of no.
The power of no.
It's the discipline to look at a contract that offers high volume but really low margin and just say no. To look at a route that destroys your tires and suspension and say no, not unless the rate fully covers the damage.
That's so hard to do when you have drivers to pay. That feels really counterintuitive.
It is incredibly hard. It feels like failure in the moment. But the source argues that the operators who survive the longest are the ones who refuse to haul unprofitable freight. They would rather park the truck than run it at a loss.
Because parking costs money, but running at a loss costs more money.
Exactly. When you run a truck at a loss, you are actively paying for the privilege of working. The invisible advantage is resilience. While the loud competitor is over-leveraged and panicking because they accepted every single load, the invisible operator is sitting on cash. Their equipment is well-maintained because they didn't run it into the ground for pennies, and they are ready.
Ready for what?
Ready for the market to turn, ready to buy that loud competitor's trucks for cents on the dollar when they inevitably go under.
Damn, that is the long game.
That's the only game.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here. Because I'm listening to this and I'm imagining the guy driving his truck right now, or the woman running the dispatch office. They're tired. They're already doing the mechanic work, the dispatching, the HR. And now we're telling them, hey, on top of all that, you also need to be a data analyst, a macroeconomist, and a fortune teller.
It does sound overwhelming. Data overload is a real fear.
It feels like a full-time job on top of an already full-time job. How do you actually implement this without just burning out?
You don't need to build a data center in your garage. You don't need complex algorithms. It really just starts with asking better questions. It's about interpretation, not just data collection.
Give us the cheat sheet. What are the 3 questions I should be asking tomorrow morning?
1, look at your lanes. Not just which ones are busy, but which ones are risky. Where is the demand coming from and how stable is it? 2, look at your customers. Who is actually profitable? I mean, if you calculate all the time delays and the payment terms, who are you actually making money on?
And then you cut the bottom 10%.
Ruthlessly. And 3, Get an outside perspective. The source calls this the trait of the strong operator.
Asking for help.
Well, it's acknowledging that when you are inside the jar, you can't read the label. You are just too close to the problems to see them clearly. You need benchmarks. You need to know what the market average is for maintenance costs per kilometer. If you're double that, you have a huge problem, but you'll never know unless you look at an external benchmark.
So reading industry reports, joining associations, maybe even hiring a consultant for a quick health check.
It's not weakness, it's strategy. You wouldn't drive a truck without mirrors. All that external advice, benchmarks, market reports, those are your mirrors. They show you your blind spots.
I really like that analogy because we often think of the strong operator as this lone wolf, the guy who does it all himself. But the research suggests that truly strong operator is actually the most connected one.
The lone wolf dies in this market. The informed operator survives.
So to wrap this all up, we've gone from the exhausted operator white-knuckling it through the rain to someone who is actually reading the roadmap. We've talked about checking your pricing against reality, watching out for those canary cash flow signals, and having the guts to just say no.
We've moved from reactive management, just putting out fires, to strategic leadership, preventing them from starting in the first place.
And the core message really seems to be that information is the asset, not the truck. The truck is just a tool. The information is how you make that tool profitable.
That's it. Correct. The businesses that survive the next 5 years won't be the ones working the hardest. They'll be the ones who are the most informed.
I want to leave our listeners with that thought you mentioned about the competitor. You brought it up earlier, and it really stuck with me.
The quiet competitor.
Yeah. We spend so much time worrying about the guy who's cutting rates or buying a bunch of new trucks. But maybe the person you should really be worried about is the one you don't see.
The one who is sitting still. The one holding cash. The one who saw the storm coming months ago and parked the fleet while you were still out there destroying your equipment for pennies.
They aren't panicking. They're just waiting.
And the question you have to ask yourself is, are you the operator who is waiting? Or are you the one they are waiting for?
That's a chilling thought to end on, but a necessary one. Market awareness isn't just a buzzword. It's your shield. Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep your eyes on the road, but don't forget to check the map. We'll see you next time.
Stay safe out there.